So my name's Sam Cook. I'm the Managing Director and co-founder of Esports Insider. We're an esports industry, media and events company based in London. So there's been a lot of mainstream interest in esports as an industry increasingly over the past few years. In the UK alone this year, we've seen a Dota 2 major sell out over 15,000 seats up in Birmingham, and we've just had the Face It CSGO major do over 10,000 seats at the Wembley Arena here in London. So there's a lot of interest around the world. It's selling out across games, it's selling out stadiums in cities across the globe. And undoubtedly that leads to interest from investment groups as well, who are looking to help take esports to the next level, so to speak, and to have their piece of the pie. So I'm here today at the offices of a group called Cascade Global, and I'll be speaking with Tej Kohli, who is the lead investor in the group. Tej, can you tell me the first question, when did esports first come onto your own and onto Cascade's radar?
It was about two and a half years ago. I'm a big sports fan, so I know a few owners in the American leagues like NFL, Robert Kraft, the Houston Rockets' new owner who bought this. So they all were leaning towards esports, and they started talking about it. Some of them have acquired these teams. Then I started talking to my own son, who plays some of these games. Started talking to some younger people, and I was fascinated by what I heard, what I saw, and clearly I felt that there was a great potential. And we started looking into this, and since then we have met a lot of experts. Certainly has a lot of potential. Sure.
So can you tell us a bit more about yourself and a little bit more about Cascade's story so far?
So Cascade is a multi-family office. It's owned by Amit Jain, who I've known for the last 18-19 years. Amit and his group of people are extremely smart. They're technologically way ahead of a lot of people, especially in Europe. And they are good, honest guys and gals. So I have reached a stage where I invest through them. I give them money and they do the rest. They of course get money from some of their own money sometimes, they get money from elsewhere. But I am their principal funder right now, but it's a multi-family office, as I said. And Cascade now is looking at futuristic products. I'm very interested in, I funded most of, if not all of their newest venture, Rewired, which runs into artificial intelligence, robotics, genomics, self-driving cars, and the likes of that. So this is a natural progression. This esports is also a very forward-looking thing.
Absolutely.
It is everybody doesn't understand it in Europe at least. So I think Cascade is doing the right thing by going there, and to the extent that I can partner with them to Kohli Ventures or myself individually to take this to the next level.
Absolutely. So as you say, esports is certainly something of a buzzword right now, and there's a lot of interest within esports generally, and the projections for the industry's growth are considerable. Have you and the Cascade team identified any key growth areas within esports that you're interested in?
Well, obviously the games are key to this whole venture. I mean, you look at League of Legends, you look at Counter-Strike, you look at all these big games that are coming up, yes, it's that is the key. But I think the way to enter into esports for someone like me or Cascade or some of the bigger groups is through ownership of respected team, and then take the team to the help get the team to the next level. There are other profit centers that I'm interested in the esports area. We are identifying quite a few different profit centers, but this should be the way to begin.
Very exciting. So team first. So this begs the question, Will there be a $1 billion esports team? And if so, when?
I hope so, Sam. I don't know. When look at Dallas Cowboys, it's about $3.5–4 billion team. I remember in 1987 when Robert Kraft, that's way before your time, I can tell.
Just a little.
1987, Robert Kraft bid for the New England Patriots. I don't know if you know this, but he paid, I think, $172 million for it. Some of us bid also. It was a close bid at that time. And today, I think New England Patriots is a $3 billion team, but it took 30 years to get there. So it's very fashionable to say it's $1 billion. I think it will take some time. Esport has some advantages over traditional sports. It's hard for some of us older guys to understand that there's so much interest in spectator sports, yes. But there are some advantages over traditional sports. For instance, I don't see the NBA games being watched in England or in Europe. I don't see Major League Baseball at all. There's no interest there, and while there's a big interest there, NFL, very few people watch here. People are beginning to watch that. But in esports, I see this, across the spectrum. One game can be like League of Legends, for all the reasons and the fact that they have their own leagues being formed now. This is the way to go, and I think it is more global than any of the traditional sports.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it has a higher potential and could reach $1 billion, but maybe not right away, but in the next few years, yes.
Give it time.
Yes, give it time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we touched on it a little earlier. You mentioned Cascade's portfolio, but can you tell me, where do you feel the Cascade Global Group can best benefit and strengthen esports as a whole? So you mentioned teams, but beyond
yes.
that.
So the esports is still a little bit about like the Wild West. While it has tremendous potential, undeniably, it has a lot of things working for it. People are becoming aware. The young people are crazy about it. The recent finals, there was a line outside, just like the stadiums. So everything is working for it, but it needs some decorum. It needs some professionalism brought into it. And I think Cascade and me, if we enter this arena from an ownership standpoint, we can help bring that type of business acumen, professionalism that this lacks. I mean, even the people who own it, they dress in a different way than the traditional businessmen dress.
Not so many suits inside.
Not so many suits and all that. I don't think we need suits, but we certainly need to tidy up our act a little bit. So that's one thing. Cascade prides itself with technology, and I think esports is, if you could put this aside, is a lot about technology. So I think we can help build that. I was telling someone yesterday that I see that AR, VR playing a big role in this, because when you go to the stadium, you still see what the player sees. But that's going to change, because imagine in a game where you can see where the hills are, where the people are, and you can see a 3D of where everybody is. I think the spectator sport will increase. And I see that technology playing a big role in bringing that about, giving it a module where you can see everything, as just opposed to from a certain angle, which you can do as a player.
Yeah.
And I see that's the next step to make it a bigger spectator sport than the way it is today.
Absolutely. So finally, the time for a bold statement or two. Could you sum up your own and Cascade's ambitions in the esports space?
Well, there are, like in every sport, there are different in every type of business, and especially as it pertains to traditional sports, there are many different profit centers. We have to choose the ones that, if, for instance, we become owners, which we are aspiring to, then we cannot have any conflicts. We have to have a high degree of integrity, decorum. We cannot go around and buy another portion of a team. I mean, these things are just not done. And I think some people are doing that because it's the Wild West. And that, I think, is not the way to go. But given the ethical side of it, and we look at other profit centers and just the The merchandising is, of course, of your own team is a big part of it. Taking it to different countries. I'm a big believer in both the US and China is booming esports area where people are really into it, and the young millenniums there are many more young millenniums to start with, so you have a better potential. And I think what most people don't understand is, and there's a common thought that Europeans are coming into this last. Yes, they are, but Europeans are very geographically, they are very strategically poised. They have the benefit of seeing what went right and wrong in the US, and same in China, and they can learn from both sides. And if aggressive owners are there who want to take their games to other parts of the world or vice versa, the global reach is much better than in traditional sports. And therefore, I think China, for instance, my own experience with China, having a few offices in that part of the world, is that they love European brands. They are looked very favorably on the European brands, provided it is in Chinese language, because many of the Chinese do not speak English, unlike many other parts of the world. So the trick is to keep the European brands, all the great sponsors. They are very much into big sponsors. They understand name recognition more than any other parts of the world. To them, it's more important that Peugeot or Mercedes is sponsoring them than it is in this part of the world, because we take it for granted. There, no. The very fact that the Mercedes is or a big brand is Daimler, Chrysler, or someone like that is sponsoring a team, gives it a lot of credibility and integrity. And that's why I think European teams, if done properly, have a great chance in China to augment what they already have here. The following can go up. Of course, the population in China and India is half the population of the world. To say that you will be $1 billion company, as you suggest, without going to that part of the world is probably not a very smart thing. So I think you have to look at China especially as a big target market for teams in Europe.
Absolutely. Well, there's plenty going on in esports, and Tej, it's great to have both yourself and Cascade involved. I very much look forward to seeing what you guys do.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.